Hi, welcome to this week's video. My name is Paul. So this week I'm doing some charcoal and soft pastel landscape painting. Going to be very loose, very abstract sort of landscapes. But of course, as usual, I'm going to be talking about something kind of different. I wanted to talk about choosing a medium. So if you're a beginner, or even if you've been doing this art thing for a while, and maybe thinking about another medium that you could choose, another one that you could use from time to time, how do you choose the best medium? If you go onto Google, if you go onto art websites and blogs, you'll often see the question, what's the best medium for beginners? Or what's the best medium for intermediate artists? I think this is maybe the wrong way to think about it, or at least there's an alternative way of looking at it. So this idea, what's the best medium for a beginner? It focuses on the sort of technical stuff, the properties of the medium and how difficult it may or may not be to learn to use that medium effectively. And that is something worth considering, but there is another way of looking at it, and that's to do with your personality. And the idea that maybe different media suit different personalities in different ways. An example would be oil paint and acrylic paint. So oil paint is well known for taking a very, very long time to dry. I don't pretend to understand the chemistry of what's going on, but as far as I understand, it is a chemical process, the drying process for oil paint. There's some sort of reaction between the paint and the oxygen in the air that causes polymerization, and that's what causes the paint to dry and to harden. But it does take a while for this to happen. So oil paint really suits people who are not in a hurry, who are prepared to sort of slow down, take their time. People who enjoy the idea that you can blend the paint because the paint stays wet. So you can do lots of blending, you can get things just the way you want them. Acrylic paint, on the other hand, dries much faster. Okay, you can add different media to acrylic to maybe slow down the drying process and things, but in general acrylic paint dries much faster. So acrylic paint, and I've heard that this was even one of the driving factors for the development of acrylic paint for artists. I don't know if it's true, but some artists don't want to wait until 3 weeks from tomorrow until the painting's dry. They want the painting finished today, this morning. So they want something that dries much faster, but still gives you those vibrant colors. So what kind of personality are you? Do you want something immediate? Do you want something that takes a long time? That's one way to think about which medium to choose, oil or acrylic. Watercolor is also something that dries very fast. In fact, as soon as you put down some pigment onto the paper in watercolor, the clock starts ticking. If you put down watercolor and it starts to dry and it's sort of semi-dry, and then you put some wet paint next to it, you'll get those cauliflower effects happening, those sort of blooms, which some people like and some people really don't like. I always think if it's intentional, if it's something that you are sort of in control of, at least partially, then there's nothing wrong with them. If it's an accident, if it's something that you didn't understand how watercolor works, that's a different thing. It's more of a case of an inexperienced artist using a medium that they haven't quite got to grips with and they haven't really learned to control. So watercolor, you really have to work quite fast. Another thing about watercolor is, if you're a perfectionist, if you like to be in complete control of what's happening, watercolor might not be the medium for you, especially if you're using wet in wet techniques. Wet in wet painting with watercolor is like, I've said before, it's like driving a car along an icy road. You think you're in control until you step on the brakes, and then you realize that maybe you're not completely in control. So if you like a little bit of chaos, if you're okay with that, if you can go with the flow of things, watercolor might suit you. If you like a little bit of abstraction in your paintings, watercolor is definitely a way to go. And doing a loose style of painting, again, watercolor is well suited to that sort of style of painting. One more we might look at is a dry medium. So of course, dry media, zero drying time, like soft pastels. Soft pastels, there's again different ways of working with them, same with all the other media. Some people like to put down lots of layers of soft pastel. And that's the way I started doing it, because it's just, I didn't really understand, and that's just what I saw other people doing. And then I realized that you don't have to do that. You can put down just a single layer, and then you can get much more expressive marks, and you can create more abstract, loose paintings like the one I'm doing today. And that's really what I enjoy about soft pastels. So it's that sort of expressive mark making. It's not about little details, because with soft pastels you can't really do details. If you try and put pressure on the soft pastel, it'll just crumble into dust really. So if you're a detail oriented person, soft pastels probably aren't for you. You can get hard pastels, you can get pastel pencils, but in general, very detailed paintings, maybe another medium is better suited to that sort of style of painting. If you like immediate marks, if you like that sort of expressive mark making, and you want the immediacy of a dry medium, so there's no brush involved, you just pick it up and start making marks. Soft pastels and charcoal are very good for that. But again, not everybody wants that, so they're not going to suit everybody. And as I say, definitely if you like lots of details and things and lots of control, soft pastels might not be for you. Okay, I don't know if this is useful to anybody. It's just an alternative way of thinking about mediums and choosing a medium. And it's not just about the technical stuff of which medium is easier to use. That is kind of, there might be some truth in it, but I think it's also a bit distracting, because each medium has a learning curve. Some might be steeper than others, but they all have the learning curve. But I do think thinking about your personality and which medium might suit that personality, I think there's some advantages in that way of thinking. Anyway, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully see you again in next week's video.